Hey guys, what's up? It's Dave Duford here at Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com. I want to thank you so much for coming to my regularly scheduled Monday live stream training event right here on YouTube. So thanks for joining. And in today's training segment, I will be talking about part 2 of the sales process that I train my agents and other agents as well on how to effectively pre-qualify and fact find so that you can determine if the lead you're across the table from actually is somebody who has a high odds chances of buying versus one that doesn't. So with all that said, the key thing I want to start with is very important. This particular training is fundamental. Everything, I think, based around the success of an agent in the field, the success of how well he takes care of his time and manages his time, the success of his closing ratio, the success of his existence and final expense sales all precipitates, all revolves around learning how to effectively do exactly what I'm going to teach here in just a moment. It's that important. It's that critical. And I will continue by saying that the agents that don't learn this tend to miss out on a tremendous amount of opportunity to spend more time with higher yield prospects and spend less time with those who probably won't buy even if you gave them a Walmart gift card or something to bribe them to get in the door. So it's important you take the time to learn exactly what I'm about to teach because it's that important. So again, this training is perfect for you guys, just like I promoted earlier. If you're having trouble in the home, you're not sure exactly what you're doing, you may not be getting the sales you thought you were going to get, and you're just kind of baffled as to why your sales aren't closing. I'll tell you, this training is perfect, although it's not necessarily the close that you should be worried about. It's all the stuff you do, all the heavy lifting you do earlier on that makes the big difference to whether or not you're going to see success. So this training is very, very important if you're in that particular situation. If you're an experienced agent, this is some fundamental groundwork that's being laid here. These are basic questions that let us figure out if we're dealing with a buyer or not. So this is perfect for you as well. Again, if you're honing your craft and learning how to be a better and more effective final expense salesperson. So before we get started, I will invite you to a few things that I do offer and do sell in case you're interested. If you're looking for leads, I offer avatar final expense leads or telemarketing leads. They turn around quick. They're relatively inexpensive. Go to my website to check them out at feagentmentor.com. I also have a best-selling book called The Official Guide to Selling Final Expense Insurance. You can buy that on Amazon. Just put in final expense in the search bar, or go to my website, look under buy products, and then you can actually buy an electronic version, an ebook version, if you'd like to read it that way. It's actually $5 cheaper if you go that direction. And I also sell sales training and appointment setting programs in addition to recruiting agents to work with me in the mentorship program. So if you'd like more information on any of that, check my website out. If you can't find it exactly what you're looking for while you're there, just click the contact box, fill out the form. I respond personally to every email that gets sent, so I'll be happy to help you out that way. So let's go ahead and get started here. Again, if you've got questions or concerns, again, it doesn't have to be necessarily related to what my topic is today. There's a chat box here. You're welcome to ask a question. I'm happy to address it. If you got any kind of burning questions about leads, final expense sales troubles you're having, stories, anything like that related to final expense, I'd be happy to help you out with any particular questions you have. So let's get started with the training. So in today's topic, again, we're going to learn how to sell final expense and how to pre-qualify and effectively fact find. So I remind you, up to this point, we have done part 1 of the sales process, which consists of you effectively learning how to build rapport and properly introduce yourself. So I remind you that so you know exactly where you stand. So at this point in the sales process, the prospect knows who you are, why you're there, and what is in it for them, and they've kind of gotten to like you a little bit. They don't have to love you, but at least they're not reserved, leaning back, hands crossed, kind of just at guard. They're let up, they're at ease a little bit, and they're going to be more open-minded to listen to what you have to say. So the sequence of events, the way that you successfully pre-qualify is you have to understand what questions are we looking for. So really what this goes back to is the old saying that a sales presentation, an effective sales presentation, is essentially disqualifying objections or pre-qualifying objections before they come up. So what I mean by that, and what that really means, is that to effectively give a presentation, you have to know in your mind what objections a prospect might have in order to buy from you. So ahead of time, right off the top of my head, the main things a prospect is going to be worried about or thinking about when I sit down and start talking to them about what we're selling is, can I trust this guy? Is this salesperson who he says he is? Can I trust him? Is he likable? Do I need what he sells? Do I want what he sells? Do I qualify for what he sells? Do I have the budget for it? And does it meet what I'm trying to accomplish? So all of these questions either were addressed earlier on in the introduction and rapport stage. Again, if you missed that, check my video log. You'll see the part 1 from a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was last week. Watch that. It'll bring you up to speed where we are today. So, but the rest of the pre-qualification stage really digs into all of those potential objections the prospect may have. That's why this is powerful, because we're going to take care ahead of time. If there is really an objection, we're going to knock it out before they can even verbalize it. And we're also going to cover the objection ahead of time, but we're also going to save our time if that objection is actually a condition, meaning it's something that we cannot come over. It's not an objection where they say, well, I don't know if I can afford this, but here's how we can get around it, and but here's the tactics to move around it. So a condition, sometimes you can't do that, but we'll know that ahead of time. So again, we're not wasting time with a prospect that's not going to produce a result that we want, which means a sale. So let's get started from the top. So the first thing that I do when I'm in the pre-qualification stage is I talk about this particular question. What were your thoughts and concerns when you sent back the lead card to begin with? The reason I ask this is because I want to know what conversation the prospect is having in their mind before I showed up. Because when I ask this question, what happens is I can figure out if they actually have a verifiable, real need in what it is that we're selling, or if they don't. So the questions, good answers to the question that you'll hear, for example, are, yeah, I'm not getting old, I'm not getting any younger, I need to take care of this, I've been thinking about this a long time, or particular stories they may have of losing a spouse or a loved one and the emotional strife they went through. They're engaged in their answer, and they have a real, tangible need based on what kind of answer they're giving. So you can tell by a good answer where they stand. Sometimes they'll say, well, I was just curious. You may have to dig a little bit further. You can ask them the 3-question routine, which is some people send this in because they don't have any insurance. They know they need some. Some send it in because they have a little bit, but they need more. And then some people send it in because they don't have enough and they want to add more to leave money behind. They've got enough, but they want to leave more to their loved ones. So the point in me saying that is that you will know where they fit based on asking a little bit more digging questions. So once you ask that, I ask always, well, so what do you want a policy to do for you? Assuming that they have a need. And then they'll tell me kind of along the lines, well, I want to take care of my burial, I want to take care of my cremation, that kind of thing. You'll get some specific answers, which is good because we're digging further to figure out, are they going to want a small policy or are they going to want a larger policy? And then what's their needs based on that? Again, this is giving us the answers by just asking these basic open-ended questions. Then I'll ask them, do you know what the cost is for do you want to be buried or cremated? So I'll ask them, do you want to be buried or cremated? Based on what they say, I'll follow up with the actual cost, the actual numbers involved with it. Again, the reason I do that is to define and to further delineate what it is that they're really wanting and needing, and then matching in some facts about what they have. So in this particular stage, if they're looking for a burial, I may say something like, well, most people, if they want to be buried, are going to run about $7,000 to $10,000 for a burial. As long as you have enough in that range, most of these funeral homes will take you. You don't have to have 15. They'll take it if you got it, but you could have as little as 7 and probably have the whole thing taken care of. They'll come off the prices a little to accommodate. So as far as fact-finding or giving specifics go on the burial, that's the most that I'll do, just because, again, it's not necessary. They're just looking for a basic plan. The buyers have had conversations in their mind for a long time. And so when we get there and we start asking them questions I've already thought about, they already know kind of what it costs. So you're just kind of confirming their suspicions in a good way so that we can offer a plan that matches that down the line. So after we do that, I will ask them, what are you doing right now for your existing insurance? I ask this question for a couple of reasons. The first reason is I want to know what they have, if they've got enough, if they don't have enough, or if they've got a policy I may potentially be able to replace. And with that said, I did a training about a week or two ago about replacing and reviewing existing policies. This is where you want to ask the client to go get the policy, take a look at it, do a review. Just as a rule of thumb, you should always do that, even if you don't think you're going to replace the plan per se. It's a good practice to learn what's in the policies and to become better at reading a policy. So make sure you ask for the policies. That way you can review them and hopefully, hey, if there's an opportunity for a replacement, it's there. I had a situation last week. The same exact thing happened. I replaced a Lincoln Heritage plan as well as an American Income Life plan, very overpriced, and got the clients much better coverage at a much less rate. So you wouldn't get that if you didn't ask the good questions and asking for what are they doing for existing coverage. And again, it gives you an idea of how much coverage you're going to offer to, whether or not you replace it. So once I do that, I'll reiterate to them, okay, so what I'm hearing is you don't have any insurance, you want to be buried, and you think $7,000 to $10,000 is going to be enough to do the job. You don't want any money left over for your family to argue about. Is that pretty much what you're looking for? That's a trial close, and it's a summary of what they said so that we're both on the same page before we progress. So if they say yes to that, the next stage is, well, at this point, let me ask you some health questions. In about 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to give you a price, but this will give me an idea of where you can fit so I can look at my plan to see what works best for you. So then I ask a series of health questions. Again, this is all thought out ahead of time because as I'm asking these questions, I'm thinking about which of my carriers are going to be the best choice for them to fit in. So real quick, I'm just going to blow right through this. This is the questions that I ask. I ask what their date of birth is, their height and weight, if they smoke, do you have any lung problems, do you take oxygen, do you have any history of cancer just for yourself personally, you ever had kidney or liver problems, you ever had any diabetes, do you take insulin, just pills, and then I go through, have you ever had any heart problems? I go through a specific list, heart attack, stroke, stents, bypasses, seizures, aneurysms, pacemakers, congestive heart failure, angina, do you take nitroglycerin to supplement any kind of chest pain you might have? I'm keeping notes of all of these too, by the way, because this is helping me identify my carriers and which ones I want to use. I ask about neurological problems, lupus, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's disease. And then finally, regarding health questions, I ask depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, dementia. That pretty much covers 95 to 99% of the biggest health issues we're always going to run into. At the end of that questioning routine, I ask them, well, the last thing I need to look at is your prescriptions. Can you go get them so I can take a look at what you take? Physically, we want them to either get the prescription bottles or we want them to actually show us their notes. Better to have the bottles in hand because it's an active, up-to-date, actually using present prescription schedule that they're taking. So look at the prescriptions, look in your carrier guide, see where the prescriptions fit up, and ask them why they're taking it, just to make sure everything's kosher the way it should be. Write all this stuff down. Keep notes on your lead cards in case you got to go back to these if a case gets declined and you forgot that this medication wasn't appropriate for that carrier for whatever coverage you applied for. It's good to keep notes. And then the last thing I'll ask is essentially, so I'll summarize again. So you've got, so just to summarize, Mrs. Jones, this is me going into script here. So Mrs. Jones, you've got COPD, you take insulin, you're bipolar, you smoke, and you've got multiple sclerosis, and you take only blood pressure medication. Is that all correct? Is there anything else out there that I haven't mentioned you might have? Now, I throw that in there because I didn't ask questions about like AIDS, drinking problems, that kind of drug problems. That stuff will get covered when I ask that question in particular. Plus, when I actually write the application up, I ask the questions line by line before I leave the house. So that way I've got 2 opportunities to double check that I'm not submitting an app or doing a phone interview and wasting my time because they were pre-qualified to begin with, and it would have been obvious if I asked the right questions. So I do that, again, all with the intention of figuring out where they fit in as regards to health goes. The next question I ask is about how we do bank drafts. Now, this is really important. I've changed my opinion on how I ask for bank draft permission. It used to be I would basically suggest that, hey, you get a discount if you bank draft or set up a direct express draft. which is true. If you compare to some carriers that do a direct bill, you do get a slight discount. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do it. And I hate wasting time. That's why I do my presentation this way. I don't like to fool around. I think final expense is a simple product, and it's not rocket science even to the people we sell it to. So I treat it that way, and so my questions I ask at specific times are direct with the purpose of identifying if this person is game or not. Because I don't like wasting time, like I said. I just want to spend time with people who are buyers. So the question I'll ask now is, after I get all the prescription information, all the health information, I'll say, well, there's two more questions I've got to ask you, Mrs. Jones. The first question is how we do payment. Here's the thing. I don't come by the house like I do today and collect the premiums monthly. That's like the thing of the past, okay? All the carriers require you to set up a bank draft. Your choice as to the day. We can start it next month. That's what most people do. But to set up a regular bank draft each and every month to make sure that your policy is paid for. That's their rules. And I'm telling you this because we can either set it up on a bank account, or if you got one of those green cards, a direct express account. Which one of those would you prefer? So I say this because, again, my style of selling, I just want to know what right out front, are you going to bank draft or not? My findings are, anecdotally, about 10% of the population won't let anybody at all bank draft. It doesn't matter who it was. 10% love bank drafts. They'd let everybody bank draft if they could out of their account. It makes their lives easier. And then there's the middle 80% that can go either way, depending on the time of day, the day itself, and the person who's selling them. So at this point, I'd like to think I've created a level of trust and rapport with them, so I can ask them a straight up question, yes or no, and I'm going to get a straight up answer. And most of the time it is, yeah, that's fine. I get declines of people bank drafting, and if you do hear that, and I'll say, well, that's fine. Let me ask you this. Can you afford to spend 3 months of premiums on a direct bill right now? If we just bill you, but I got to collect the 3 months of premium right now, can you do that today? If they say no to that, well then, if they say yes to that, I'll do it. If they say no to that, then what I'll ask them, I say, look, everybody I deal with, in order to take these plans out, has to bank draft. It's just the rules. Don't kill the messenger. It's not my rules. It's the company's rules. Okay? Here's the thing. Most people don't like bank drafts. The ones that hate bank drafts because a company set it up before they get the check. We make sure to set it up after you get your check. If you need a couple extra days, that's fine. But we'll never take your money out before you get your check. And this is the only way I can get you insurance. Okay? So bottom line, can you work with that, or is this something that you're not interested in? So I'm direct like that, again, because they may have some resistance that's logical based on prior experience. So that's the biggest objection, that somebody will first say no and then they'll change their mind. But the key thing, again, is to drive right home and lay it out on the line and say, look, do you want it or not? That saves a lot of time because, again, I think bank drafts, usually people will do it at this point if they like you and trust you, which they should when you're asking this question. The ones that say flat out no would say no matter what. And you can't save those guys. You just need to find out who they are early on so you can just say sayonara and go find and spend time with a real prospect, not a faker like this particular person. So once I've got the confirmation on the bank draft, the next question, final question in the pre-qualification stage, most important in a sense, is budget. Budget. So the way I ask this, my final question to you is this, Mrs. Jones, and it has to deal with price. Look, everybody I deal with is on a fixed income. 9 out of 10 people that buy from me are disabled, they're retired, they get one check. One check. There's no money tree out back. They've got to make this money last, okay? And so why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because the bottom line is you don't need to buy a plan that you can't afford, all right? It may seem weird because I'm a salesperson telling you this, but it's the truth. If you take out a plan, right, and in 6 months, when the heat bill's or the air conditioner bill's gone through the roof, and you're thinking of ways to cut off, and you've spent too much already on this insurance, and you drop it, that's a waste of your money. It's a waste of my money too. It's a waste of everybody's time. It didn't do you any good. That's not how you buy insurance. The best way and the best policy to get is the one that's going to be there when you pass away, Mrs. Jones. And that means, by default, that plan that's there when you die is affordable from the first day to your last. That's what I'm interested in helping you with. Okay, so bottom line, I want to get you something you can afford. So that whole script, that whole segment there, builds more rapport. It builds more trust. Why? Because I'm identifying who they are. Fixed income. They don't have a lot of money to spend. I respect that. And I don't want to sell them something. I mean, I'm a salesperson telling them I'm not going to sell them something that's a ripoff. And that's a waste of my time to do that. No salesperson says anything crazy like that, but it's the truth. So I'm going to create a better connection. So by saying that, then I can ask them for a higher premium, because what I do is I sell the premium. What that means, instead of offering a face amount, I actually offer a premium range. So I can then ask, well, this is my question, you Mrs. Jones. If I can qualify you for a program today, keyword today, can you afford somewhere between $80 and $100 a month? Then you shut up and wait for their answer. Usually they'll say, oh God, that's too expensive. No problem, this is your rebuttal. No problem, Mrs. Jones. That's fine. If I can find you another program, can we do somewhere between 50 and 70? And then repeat that process until you get like the 15 to 20. So why do you do this? Because you're going through different price ranges to see where they can most afford the budget. That's the beauty of it. You're not spending all this time educating, pre-qualifying, rebuttaling to just show a face amount they may not even necessarily need nor afford. We know before we get to the presentation where they can fit, where they can budget for a monthly premium. That's the beauty of it. So on top of that, the key section with this is that in order to proceed to the next portion of the sales call, where you actually present what you sell, you must get an absolute 100% confirmation, yes, that they can afford it. You don't want to hear a maybe or I think I can. That's bad. Why? Because that's not a yes. If they say, well, yeah, I think that might work. Well, why wouldn't they think it wouldn't work 100% is the question I'm thinking. So the solution to this is to ask with 100% positive affirmation. You need to hear a yes in order to take to the next level. If they say, well, I think I could possibly do that, my rebuttal that is, well, when I hear I think I can or I might be able to, what that really means is somebody really can't afford this. They may be able to afford 1 month but not the rest. So let me ask it this way. What if we bumped it down? Instead of 50 to 70, maybe we went from 35 to 50. Can you afford someone there? And they're like, oh yeah, that'll be good. So you want to get that positive confirmation. Real quick story about that. I had a ride along about 2 years ago with a new agent. I did a sale somewhere called Rockwood, Tennessee, and everything looked good. I presented to the lady, and I walked out of the house. She would not buy. That's in my mind, I couldn't see at the time why she wasn't buying from me. It just didn't make any sense. And then I thought about the questions that I asked, specifically the one I just covered about the premium question. She says, I think I can afford that. So I took that as a yes, incorrectly. And then when I went to make the pitch and showed her the face mask, she's like, yeah, I think I can afford this after I pay $1 million bills off in 5 months. You know, some tire-kicking BS question. I rebutted it by saying, well, how about something to start with that's less than what you want, and then we'll add more later. It's the same kind of tired old question. So the key thing here is to only take yes as an answer. You cannot take anything else as an answer. If it's anything other than a yes, that's a no. That's how I think now. So if you ever do a ride-along with me, let's say, and I'm presenting premium options, and they say maybe, that's Dave thinking no. So that means I have to break this down a little bit further and lower the premium to get a positive 100% yes affirmation. Because if I don't do that, then I don't have a deal. I don't have a qualified prospect that meets my criteria of buying. That's everything in this particular section. Pre-qualifying, to kind of summarize what we've learned about today, pre-qualifying is the act of determining ahead of time what the criteria are for buying. Okay? We need to know what a prospect needs to know in order to say yes. Okay? Meaning, we need to know what's going on in their minds as potential objection points or concerning points. Most of the time, there's about 3 to 5 things. In final expense, it's need, want, health, bank account, and budget. Okay? 5 things right there. So if we match all those things in this particular section and we get everything a confirmation and everything sounds positive, the beauty to all this is that once you get to that point, you've got a really highly qualified prospect. This is somebody who probably is going to buy from you, okay? Given after you position yourself effectively, because there's still a few more questions about what about the other guys and what does this plan do? More technical questions. when you get to that, that's what we'll handle in the next live stream, where we actually present this and how to position ourselves. But we got a really high odds prospect right now if we've got everything answered. One final thing. Some people ask me, well, what happens if I get everything answered but one is not an affirmative? It's maybe like an almost affirmative, right? Like they say they need insurance, they got $10,000, but they don't need any more for burial, and you can't replace them. But they've got a budget, price, they got everything you need. Well, so what normally happen is that in order to get someone qualified and defined as a qualified prospect, they must meet all of the criteria. They can't meet just they can't just meet 4 out of 5, let's say in this example, or almost 5. Maybe they got all 4 strongly, and the 5th one's kind of sorta. A kind of sorta is not qualified. A kind of sorta does not meet your criteria. You must, before you proceed past this point, have all pieces meeting your criteria with complete 100% affirmation. Trust me, I've done more than 3,000 final expense presentations in my career. I've seen other agents present. This is where agents lose it. This is where I used to lose it a lot, in the sense that I thought, well, they're almost qualified, or they're almost, everything sounds pretty good. Well, that's just one little thing. And it always comes back to get you when you continue the presentation and when you actually get to offering the actual product that you're selling. It always comes back, and it's always a negative thing, and it always very rarely ends in a sale. Because the hardest thing to do in sales is to ask the tough questions up front, the heavy, heavy questions. I actually got done reading a book called High Probability Selling, and it is totally different than, there's some similarities on how I do things, but it's totally different in the prospecting process and the sales process. For example, there's one interesting part where the person's cold calling, and they do the pitch where they say, hey, I offer X widget, our boxes are 4 colored, they come in multiple sizes. Is this something you want? Would you like to buy this? Is kind of the question they ask. They ask a buying question up front. And it totally throws everybody off that reads it, especially me. But it throws a prospect off. And they'll say, well, yeah, maybe, and they start asking questions. But they begin with the end in mind. Do you want to buy this? They don't do all this stuff in between that makes it a little easier to present, but doesn't necessarily address the fundamental questions that you need to ask. So I'm not saying, prospect and ask everybody to buy on the phone. I'm just saying when you present to them, ask the heavy questions sooner than later. You will spend less time with deadbeats. You'll be a lot happier as a final expense agent, and you will sell more because you'll see more, and you just won't waste time with bad prospects, bad leads. That's what's key in this business, to keep your head game straight, is not to go down the winding path with a deadbeat that plays a prospect really well that will drive you absolutely nuts. So I hope you enjoyed this training. My name is David Duford at Final Expense Agent Mentor. If I could ever do anything at all for you, if you have any questions about my mentorship program, if you'd like to order my book, if you'd like to buy any kind of leads that we offer, any sales training programs, head over to Final Expense Agent Mentor. That's feagentmentor.com. Feel free to drop me a line via the contact box. Be happy to help you with anything at all. And thank you so much again for watching. We'll see you next Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Y'all take care. Thanks so much. We'll see you.